The topic of today, diffusion, osmosis, and osmosis in plant cell. Let's start with diffusion. Look at this picture. For a jar of air was placed upside down on top of a jar containing brown gas as shown. What happens here? The gas particles in random motion. So particles of gas can move randomly with diffusion. So the diffusion, the movement of particles from place to another place. From where? Like a slide. From high concentration to low concentration. Diffusion, movement of particles, of ions, of substance, like oxygen, like carbon dioxide, from region of high concentration of this material to another region that has lower concentration. So the important point here, the concentration gradient. Concentration gradient. The concentration difference between regions of high concentration and low concentration. Like when you go down, you move quickly. And when you go up, you move slowly. The same, this is the same diffusion. So diffusion is the random movement of substance, of molecules, of ions from region of high concentration to another region that has low concentration. But for what? For salts, for ions, molecules, substance, for gases, but not for water. Not for water. Again, diffusion, random movement of substance, molecules, ions, particles from region high concentration to region of low concentration. So here the particles move down the concentration gradient from high to low, from high to low. Why? This is the result of random motion, random movement of particles. And also here diffusion doesn't need energy from cells, from respiration. Okay, but how? How these molecules move? How these molecules move? These molecules move down, like a slide, move down the concentration gradient from high concentration to low concentration as a result of random movement. So here it is energy. Yeah, the energy here for diffusion doesn't come from the cell, from respiration, but comes from where? Comes from kinetic energy of the random movement of molecules and ions, from collisions between molecules, from collisions between ions. So here particles can move from high to low concentration down concentration gradient. Let's see here the paragraph, the direction of movement particles from high concentration, point A, to the lowest concentration, point B. Down concentration gradient, from up to down, down concentration gradient. Again, what's the meaning of concentration gradient? This is the difference between two regions. One high concentration and the other low concentration. Like when you put ink, when you put spot or ink in water, what happens? The ink particles diffuse or spread in the liquid from high concentration, here water, and here this ink, these particles of ink in random motion. So it is spread from high concentration to lower concentration. The liquid color with ink, with the same ink color. And we say here, when you reach to the equal concentration in this liquid, you can say this is equilibrium, and the diffusion will stop. When you reach that at equilibrium state, the diffusion will stop. So equilibrium is the equal concentration of substance inside and out of the cell. What happens when diffusion doesn't stop? Maybe the cell will burst, maybe the cell will swell and explode. Let's see the factors that affect diffusion. We have many factors that affect diffusion. The first one, the surface area to volume ratio. Okay, this cube, like the cell, the length here 1 centimeter. So what is the surface area here? 1 multiply 1 multiply 6. So the surface area here for this cube, 6 centimeter square. Let's see this one, that each side has 2 centimeter. Also 2 multiply 2 multiply 6 equals 24 centimeter square. This one, that each side has 3 centimeter, 3 multiply 3 multiply 6, 54 square centimeter. Okay, let's see the volume to compare between surface area and volume. Here's the volume, 1 multiply 1 multiply 1 equals 1. And here 2 multiply 2 multiply 2 equals 8. 3 multiply 3 multiply 3 equals 27. Okay, focus here for the ratio between surface area, the total surface area, and volume. So the bigger cell or structure, the smaller surface area. Here, the volume of the cell becomes 8, and here 27, but the surface area decrease. Here 6, here 3, here 2. When the volume of the cell increase, the surface area will decrease. This is the first factor that affect diffusion. the surface area to the volume ratio. So a larger surface area through which diffusion can happen increase the rate of diffusion. Let's see the temperature. We say the molecules, the particles in random motion, and the collision. There are collisions between particles. So when you increase the temperature, what happens? The higher temperature provides particles with more energy, more kinetic energy. So also the rate of diffusion increase. Because here the energy for diffusion comes from where? Comes from collision, from kinetic energy of particles, from random motion of particles. The third factor, distance. This alveoli, and here the blood capillary. So the smaller distance molecule have to travel faster, transport will take place. This is why blood capillaries and alveoli have walls, have thin wall to decrease the distance for diffusion. Why blood capillaries and alveoli have thin wall? To decrease the distance for diffusion. So the rate of diffusion increase when distance decrease, or when the cell have thin wall. The fourth factor here, concentration gradient. If the difference between concentration more, also the rate of diffusion will increase. So a larger difference in high and low concentration increase the diffusion rate. Because what? Because on the side with the higher concentration of particles, more random collisions against membrane. So the rate of diffusion increase. Also the size of molecule. The smaller molecule, the smaller particles diffuse faster than the large particles. Again, the factors that affect diffusion. The first one, surface area. The large surface area increase diffusion, and temperature. Higher temperature diffuse faster because more kinetic energy for diffusion. Concentration gradient, higher gradient or higher concentration, also the high is steeper and diffuse faster. And also the smaller particles diffuse faster than large particles. And also the diffusion medium. If the medium solid, so here the slowest motion, so the slowest diffusion. If you have liquid medium, the diffusion will be fast than liquid, and the gas faster than liquid, faster than solid. Because here diffusion depends on the collisions between particles, the kinetic energy that comes from collisions between particles. How diffusion help living organisms? Diffusion help organisms to obtain many of their requirements, like oxygen, like carbon dioxide, like minerals, and get rid of many of their waste products, like urea and carbon dioxide, and also carry out gas exchange for respiration between the lungs and the blood capillary and the blood. Let's see some examples of diffusion in living organisms. Plants require oxygen for respiration all the time. This oxygen comes from where? Comes from air through stomata. And also carbon dioxide diffuse that produced from photosynthesis process. Also oxygen moves from high concentration in lungs to the lower concentration in the blood. And also carbon dioxide diffuse out, moves from higher concentration in the blood to the lower concentration in the alveoli or in the lung. Also substances like oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, dissolved nutrients, and urea can move into and out of cell organism also through diffusion. All this happens across the cell membrane, which is selectively permeable, that it choose or control the movement of substance that enter or leave the cell. These examples of diffusion and the importance of diffusion for the cell to obtain requirements, to get rid of waste products, to carry out gas exchange for respiration. If you have any question, you can ask now. Okay, Muhammad.
Yes, Mr.
Okay, do you have any question?
No, I just raising my hand to.
Okay. This is chapter 3, the first topic, diffusion. This is biology. Collisions between particles. Okay. Quickly, let's summarize what I said for diffusion. Diffusion is the random movement of substance, of molecules, of ions from region of high concentration to region of low concentration, down concentration gradient. Down concentration gradient, the difference between two regions, high and low concentration. And also here, the diffusion, the passive movement, because here cells do not need to use energy, but the energy for diffusion comes from kinetic energy of random movement of molecules and ions, collisions between molecules and ions. The factors that affect diffusion, number one, surface area. When surface area increase, the rate of diffusion also increase. When temperature increase, the rate of diffusion increase. Why? Because here more collisions against cell membrane, more kinetic energy. When the distance decrease, the rate of diffusion increase. Here concentration gradient, higher gradient, higher concentration, give more steeper for particles to diffuse. And also the smaller particles diffuse faster than larger particles. How diffusion help living organisms? To obtain requirements to get rid of waste products and carry out gas exchange for respiration. For example, diffusion of oxygen in and out the plant, and also diffusion of carbon dioxide in and out the plant during photosynthesis and respiration. Diffusion of oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water and dissolved nutrients and urea into and out of the cell organism. Okay, let's answer the question. Muhammad, start to answer question number 1.
By which process do oxygen and carbon dioxide move between cells and capillaries? Answer is B, diffusion.
Okay, diffusion. Yes, diffusion. These oxygen particles or carbon dioxide between cells and the capillaries by diffusion.
Okay.
Let's see here question number 2. The jar of air at the start placed upside down on top of the jar containing the brown gas as shown. This bromine gas. Which process has taken place? Diffusion both up and down, diffusion down, diffusion up, diffusion and osmosis. Here diffusion up and down. Why diffusion up and down? Because when a gas jar at the first here, when a gas jar containing air is placed upside down on a gas jar containing bromine vapor, this brown gas, after some times, the gas jar containing air also becomes completely reddish brown here. What is the reason? We observe that after some time, the red brown vapors of bromine spread out and diffuse upper gas jar containing air. Here this mixing is due to diffusion of bromine vapor into air. And also air from upper jar also diffuse into lower jar. So we cannot see it. So diffusion is the process in which mixing substance with another substance takes place due to motion of particles, random motion of particles. So here the correct answer, diffusion both up and downward. Next question. Nuran?
Yeah.
What is an example of diffusion? The same question number 1. Dust or oxygen or pollen or red blood cells?
Let's go.
You have any
Okay.
question?
I want to answer.
Okay, answer.
Okay. What is an example of diffusion? Dust particles being moved by isolated cells in the trachea. The
Okay.
oxygen molecule moves to red blood cells in the lungs. Pollen grains moving from the anther to stigmas in the wind. Red blood cells
Okay.
moving in the blood capillary in the muscle.
Dust particles that moved by ciliated cells. Here moved by ciliated cells, not diffusion.
Yeah.
Pollen grains that moving from anther to stigmas, pollination by wind. Red blood cells moving in blood capillary in a muscle, also not diffusion. So what is the diffusion? The example of diffusion?
Oxygen molecules moving
Okay,
in the red blood
oxygen molecules that moving into red blood cell in the lungs, between lungs and between alveoli and the blood in blood capillaries. Okay. Omar? Omar? Okay, this is the example
Yes,
of.
sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have any question first for diffusion? The movement of particles from high concentration to low concentration, down concentration gradient, from high to low. Do you have any question for this? Okay. Here the diagram show a test tube containing clear jelly. Drop of blue ink is injected into the middle of the jelly. Here drop of blue ink. The blue color of the ink spread through the jelly. Why? Due to diffusion. The diffusion of what? Of the ink particles. مازن مازن أنور يوسف
Yes,
يوسف
sir.
yeah.
Mr. Hoa, you are not sharing the question, so I have to read it.
Oh, sorry. Now
Okay. A frog is an animal. A frog's skin is permeable to oxygen
and carbon
and
dioxide.
carbon dioxide. When a frog is swimming,
What is the meaning of permeable?
it allows sunlight
Allow,
only.
excellent. Allow
Yeah,
oxygen and
shine.
carbon dioxide to enter the cell
Yes, sir.
or out
When
the
a
cell.
frog,
Okay.
yes,